Well, from the lyrics, the dances, and public display of moves, politicians have often used music to pass subtle messages. The latest on the lips of the political class is Lucky Dube's 1989 hit song, Nobody Can Stop Reggae. While ODM party chief Raila Odinga says nobody can stop reggae, in a bold move, Deputy President William Ruto insists that only clean reggae, devoid of ethnic balkanization, will sail through.
No one can stop reggae.
This story we are being told about nobody can stop reggae. If the reggae is what we are seeing, the ethnicity that is being preached in BBI rallies, and the ethnic profiling of communities, and the hate and the campaign one community against another, if that is the reggae they are talking about, my friends, reggae will stop.
A very warm welcome to New Week today on TV47. My name is Leangari. Indeed, it's a beautiful Monday and with a very interesting panel, quite a lot to discuss tonight. I will introduce my panel. We have Daniel Orogo, a political commentator, just here, right, almost next to me. And then we also have Noel Zeti, who is a youth leader. And also we have David Oyola, who is a governance expert. Thank you guys for coming.
It's a pleasure.
I believe you've seen the sound bites there, as we call them in the newsroom. Basically, there, Deputy President William Ruto speaking, and of course also ODM leader Raila Odinga speaking there. Basically, our debate tonight begins with this: the BBI rallies. Do you think they're being used to whip up ethnic profiling and, of course, animosity, as some have actually said? I'll begin with you.
Well, thanks, Leah, for once again reiterating the fact that we are witnessing unprecedented level of ethnic balkanization in the country, and to some effect, the utterances that were made in these rallies. Some of them borders ethnic incitement, and I really like to congratulate ODM party for assuring the citizens that they mean their words when they come to actually, recognizing that one of the senators of Narok, made a statement that really is ethnic in nature and inciting ethnic animosity. But then here is the catch: is the fact that we have seen the rallies in the past. Kisii, Kakamega, in all other areas. Mm-hmm. But one of the issues that we as leaders and people who were interested in trying to check out what Kenyans should actually identify is the fact, what are the issues that were outlined before. And we have a 9-point agenda, serious 9-point agenda to talk about. And all this agenda filtered, and Kenyans should not lose out, what the intended purpose of Building Bridges initiative was, as communicated, and as is being, in good faith and with political will, what is within the 9-point agenda for Kenyans to glean through, as opposed to, has it become a tool for weaponizing ethnic emotions? Has it become a tool for,
and do you think it has become that kind of tool?
I think that is the trajectory that is taken of late, and this is actually witnessing in the utterances, and even trying to bar some politicians who are seen, quote in quotes, to be having and harboring contrary opinion that are not really liked by other quarters. But I am sure that the leaders have sticked and they have said that this is what the agenda is and we should steer it.
Well, remember, viewers, that you can actually engage us on this debate tonight. You can write to us through our social media platforms. That is TV47KE, and that is across the platforms: Instagram, Twitter, and also Facebook. Let us know what you think about tonight's discussion. If you have any views, any comment that you'd like to share with us, shoot them through. We'll be sure to sample them as we continue with this tonight's show, and of course at the tail end. But let me throw that same question to you, Zeti. What do you think about that particular question that I've asked? Do you think there's that idea of ethnic profiling and animosity?
I would say following recent activities around the BBI rallies and everything, our leaders are really selling a hypocritical message out there, saying that they're out here. They're among the 9 pillars of the BBI. What the BBI is set to achieve was the issue of ethnic antagonism and competition. Like it was, the BBI was set out to cure that very particular issue that has set Kenya up in flames, not once, not twice, but so many times that we cannot afford it to do one third time. But as you see, as they're going about selling the message of the BBI, trying to garner the views of the people, trying to rally for support, we're actually losing the true object of what the BBI was set out to do, because you see now it's become like it's our center stage where we're playing politics. We're trying to see which community will support which one the most and which other community will support which other one the most, when the BBI Building Bridges initiative is supposed to unite Kenyans and give one front, like a Kenya of many colors that is going to the colors are going to merge and we are like one great Kenya, but we are losing it and we're just like on the 6th rally of it. So I really do not see what we're really trying to achieve out of these rallies when we cannot actually see it from the very beginning.
Oyela, your views. Are you of the same opinion?
I beg to differ with the contributions of my friends. We need to look at what exactly the senator raised. Did he raise some pertinent issues that are true and are eating our society? I agree with him. Because if you look at the points that he was putting across, that there's been some funny appointments in government, just only favoring a few ethnic relevant communities that is relevant to the government of the day. And it is not only happening for this government. It has been happening all the way from 1963. And that trend has been continuing. And if you look at that trend, what it triggers, it is in itself incitement. Because when you're given an appointment of 10 people and you find that maybe 8 of them are from one ethnic community, then that one is in itself is an incitement. So when the senator raised those particular issues, I agreed with him. Number 2, he raised issues that are very important. And he said, if you come to Maasai land, for example, Narok and Kajiado, which is predominantly Maasai, and you buy a land that is delineated for agricultural use, and you want to set up apartments. You know, Olekina was talking like a pastoralist, that they rely on land and farms to survive, not apartments. Maasais are not entrepreneurs in building estates and apartments. So he was trying to protect the interest of his own people. And that is very true, because there is no need. There are so many countries in Europe and in America. If some areas have been put, and even in Kenyan land policy, I think there are those kind of approaches where ADC says that this land you can't use it for constructing. And you see, this is what has brought a lot of chaos even in our city today. You realize that there are sections that are being left for school construction, public utilities like hospitals, and people have grabbed them and constructed apartments. There are sections that are wetlands, that are swampy areas, and people have taken them and constructed apartments. And you realize that our drainage, even in Narok in itself, if there is a rain, everybody is carried out in a sea of flood. And when the senator said that if you buy a land that is put and marked for agricultural use, you cannot use it for constructing apartment, I think he had a point. The only point that I don't agree with the senator, with the good senator for Narok, is his approach to this issue. That is an issue that you bring it on the board at the table where you can contain divergent opinion. Mm-hmm. The moment you take into a political rally, then it becomes a mobilization tool. And what happens? In democracy, it is assumed, in fact, not even in democracy, but in politics, it is assumed that the masses are people who do not have information, and the information that they have should be very little, because they do not reason from their
David, I want
but
you
they
to
reason with emotions.
Yes.
And therefore, I don't agree with the senator in the approach that he gave that whole issue. But he raised very honest conversation that the president told us we should have an honest conversation. If you went to Central, they were talking about coffee. Nobody talked about it. When you went all the way to other places, like yesterday, they were in Northeastern. They were talking about issues concerning the Somalis and the warriors in that area. Nobody raised an issue. Why is it that when people talk about issues that affect their people in Narok and Kajiado, it is a big issue? And let me tell you, initially when the first rally started in Kisii and Kakamega, they said all these rallies and BBI, they are only for splitting and forming seats for politicians. You know, they're not talking about Ndungu Land Report, TGRC, and all those kind of reports. Now, but now when the TGRC is now on, has been doing what they talked about, it is an incitement.
Thank you for your comments. I want to throw it to David. David looks like he's not agreeing with some of the things you're saying. And I just want to hear from you, David. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Daniel, sorry. Well, I think he's come through and he said very well that the good senator had a platform to raise pertinent issues. And I agree with that, in fact, the Building Bridges Initiative platform provides for all communities, inclusive as it looks, so that you come and deliberate and probably have an agreement to give your views to the chair and hand it over when people are witnessing. I think that is the nature on how, the rallies. Actually, the rallies are culmination of a delegates meeting. And my question was that if there was a meeting before the rally, how I wish that the good senator would actually, synchronize this kind of concern and, have these issues raised well and put into the document and presented in the rally as was done, as opposed to, finding it exciting within the political rally to raise the issue. Because, like Ayola said, the masses always have very little information about this. Any information that is whipped and is sensationalized drives people's emotions and feelings, probably to act in a certain way that is contrary to the expectation of Building Bridges Initiative. And this is why I said very well that the communities have an equal platform through the delegates meeting always before a pre-rally to have an issue addressed and put into the document and presented. And so if the rallies are to come the day after, it is just a way of affirmation. It is a way of confirming that even though there are matters that are hell-bent, historical in nature, the matters that have been, have been concerned to certain communities, this is the way that we've dealt with it, and it is the way we are presenting the Building Bridges Initiative.
So are we potentially going to see a change in this trend that we've had in the country?
I think it also depends on how, like I said, that the Orange Democratic Movement leader and the committee and you see the leadership of the party have actually set a precedent that they are not going to associate with their leaders who incite the people in the rallies. And I think equally to Jubilee should actually take the same mantle that in anywhere we go, and now the rallies are headed to Meru and Central, and probability of some statements coming from these rallies are highly, from the evidence that we are seeing. And you see, it is important that they also take this precedence, not only in the two political rallies, even the Tanga squad. One of the things that we are seeing is a backlash, that there is sensational information and emotional information that are being thrown to the masses, and they're actually receiving it and acting out of it.
I want to hear from Zeti. Zeti, you are a youth leader. And I think in certain circumstances, such as what we're talking about here, ethnic profiling and animosity, that can, of course, spark some bit of, like what he's talking about in terms of emotions. What would you say should be the response of the young people in the country so that we do not see a recurrent situation of what we've seen in the past?
First, I would like to categorically say that the biggest problem with the leadership or governance in Kenya is the reluctance to talk about the real issues that are facing Kenyans. What people choose to do is go with what they think as the easy way out. The easy way out of we are going to ride on political emotions, we're going to be temperamental, we're just going to ride on what satisfies what we think, our politics and the theories we believe in, like what we ride on, but we're not really addressing what the real issues that are facing Kenyans. Mm-hmm. So as for the youth, I'm very sure, like the BBI has said, it has the good interest of the people in hand, and we have even been assured that by Raila Odinga today. So I'd like to say that as we move forward, we need to involve the youth. Like we're talking about BBI, but there is very negligible contribution to the youth and how we're going to run these affairs. So I think it's up to the youth to actually take up this narrative and actually correct these wrongs that we see but sit on, instead of just choosing sides that we now want to sit on. Like I am now a youth and who believes in Raila Odinga's beliefs and theories, I will support this, or I'm for the other team and I will do this. I think we should say neutral, and not neutral and not acting, but neutral and actually coming up actively and drumming support and saying, this is what the youth stand for. The youth want a better Kenya. The youth want their issues addressed. We want real-time issues. We want to address unemployment. We want to address housing.
Many other issues.
Healthcare,
yes, that the youth are going through right now.
Yes.
I want to throw a question to you, Daniel, and this is in regards to the census results. We see that the results here indicate each tribe's population. Do you think this was really necessary?
well. Again, it is one of the political misdoings that we really having. When right now, I keep on looking at it from a critical angle because there are two issues that are involved. One is the timing, and secondly, what is planned politically to be done in the country. Remember, we are Oyola and my colleague can bear witness that we are preparing for a boundaries review. And when the IBC is just about and have announced their plans for a boundary review, what is going to really guide that is the numbers. And probably adding more constituency or removing some of them is going to be one of the critical areas that, IBC would consider. The other thing that, we are also grumbling in it as we prepare for the numbers is that already the launch for 2022 has been done through the Building Bridges initiative, and the bravado that we are seeing from the Deputy President. He's declared that he's actually one of the contenders and the rest who are going to join him. What is politics without numbers? And I think you all know that there has been an overriding theme in this country that our target is always the tyranny of numbers. And so you get the tyranny of numbers from all these, how do you get it? By organizing a tribal outlook from the parties. Now, one of the things that probably would happen is also the political parties recruitment that is already that is already being planned. So for me, even as much as the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics would have done that in another way, and actually we are having counties, why would it be done through the county outlook? Why could it have been done through other measures, other demographic way and other social ways to make sure that this is the number? And how I wish that we could actually go deeper into the report, look at the population of youth bulge right now with that report. How I wish that we not look at those who are within the poverty line out of it, and the number of young people who have not taken ID cards, and those who took Huduma number. And I wish these numbers could be aggregated to give that kind of an outlook around the information. How then would it be told that this number of tribes, and I don't know what would have guided that out of the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. So maybe there was an element they were looking on, but for me, I see malice out of it. I see a tribal being played. Yeah. But equally in other trying to play the devil's advocate, we desire to know. That is important to know how many Kikuyus, how many Luos, and how many people, for the purposes of trying to, intermarry as well in this country. Yeah.
Let me hear from Oyola. I want to hear. He says he feels that there's probably some bit of malice in the results, indicating each tribe's population number. What do you think about this, Oyola?
I want to agree with him that the report, especially on our demographic distribution, in terms of tribe, how many they are out there. Of course, there's some reeks of malice that it has, because I would not agree with most of part of it. But all said and done, I want to agree that the census report was a very good report. I've gone through half of it, and some of the things I would invite my friend to go through the report. They have put even guys that they put a lot of information. It is actually a 462 page document. Yeah. I have gone through half of it. I'm in page 200 and something, because I want to be very specific and exactly. I look at the distribution of the problems we have in our country, and it is a very good report. Again, politics is a game of numbers. It would also play out not only for the presidential, but also even to the local MCA, women rep, and all these other seats. So the report, I give it a thumbs up. It's a good start. We are improving.
All right. Right now, I want us to take a short break. When we return, we'll definitely delve into other matters. And of course, remember you are watching New Week right here on TV47 with me, Leangari. Remember the hashtag tonight is New Week. Tell us what you think about tonight's discussion. It's very important for for you to be involved in tonight's discussion. Remember, the handles there are TV47KE. That's across the social media platforms. That is Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Tell us where you're writing from as well and your name. We'll be sure to sample your comments as they come in. Right now, though, let's take a short break. Don't go too far. New Week will be back shortly. My panel in studio can't keep quiet, but they're very excited about tonight's topics. Remember, you are watching New Week. Welcome back. My name is Leangari. Remember, you can send us your views and comments through our social media platforms. That is TV47KE, and that is on Instagram, Twitter, and of course, Facebook. Tell us also your name and where you're writing from. Remember, the hashtag is New Week. Now, before we took a short break, we were still looking at the BBI report and, of course, the allegations of ethnic profiling and animosity. But I want to ask you, gentlemen and lady, the fact that we have mainly politicians speaking at these BBI rallies, do you think these political rallies are an effective or good ground for validation of the BBI report?
Yes, they are. In our democratic setup, we gave up our sovereignty to our leaders. That is one thing we need to know, that we can practice either directly or indirectly. And indirectly in this case is that we took our sovereignty to our leaders. So in most of the time, they make decisions on our behalf, and it is assumed that it is us who have made it. So there's no problem with politicians going out there to speak. And again, they're also decorating the event. You know, it's not only about, politics, it's a game of, the experience, the thing. I wish I would invite you to go to the one in Meru. You will love politics by all it comes with. And so it is also an experience. And when
so you think they are a good ground for validation?
It is a good ground for validation.
Let me hear from you, Zeti, what you think.
I would say a yes and a no. And a very strange no. Because why? We have taken a BBI rally to a specific county. Our main intention of doing this was that by the time we're getting done with this rally in this particular county, these people know what this report actually wants for them. Have we been able to achieve that so far? Can I go to Wanjiku and ask Wanjiku, since the BBI rally is really taking rounds around the country, is there anything that you can stand for, you can pick from this document and stand for, and say if this is what it is, then this is indeed a validation that it has good interests of the people of this country at heart? Can someone be able to prove that? I think, again, I guess.
So what do you think should have been the approach?
The approach should have been, yes, we have politics, like the way he has said, to decorate the whole function, but then we should not drown in politics and actually forget the real objective that is supposed to be dispensed by these BBI rallies. So let's talk about sense, and then let's bring play to sense. But after sense has sunk in the heads and minds of Kenyans, who we purport to actually want to present their interests, so that come 2022, because that is the main issue, come 2022 and beyond, we have actually realized, or if not realized like fully, we're halfway through realizing what this report was set out to do. But if that is not what we are set out to achieve, then I do not see the point of having this rally.
Kenyans don't yet know exactly what
we are not in touch with the common mananchi. These rallies are not in touch with the common mananchi.
BBI is a political process.
All right.
Well, you're forgetting.
Briefly.
Well, there are two, and since Building Bridges initiative, I've touched some very critical articles in the Constitution. It's definitely geared towards a constitution reform, and that is a referendum. Now, there are two ways of amendment of a constitution, and I think you know that is Article 255 and 256. Punguza Mizigo initiative tried the popular initiative, but failed. One of the questions that I keep on asking about the Building Bridges initiative is which, constitutional way did they follow? And that is a question that I keep on. However much that initiative is good, then Kenya needs to see it from the spectrum of how then would it be respect the constitution.
I'll just cut you short so that we take a call from Maggie from Vihiga. We just want to hear her question or her comments. Good evening, Maggie. Nzuri sana. Come again?
Mambo ya BBI kupiko Kenya hii sana. Tulianza katiba ya 2010 kubadilisha itatengeneza maisha ya wananchi. Kama sio sasa ni sasa hivi. Ruto akasema hii katiba tutengeneze twende pamoja. Na wakasema tupitishe tutarekebisha. Bado tutakumbana hiyo mambo tutelezewa hukumu tena namba ya hukumu. Bado tunakumbania tumelezewa grupa iko.
I'm afraid we'll have to cut her short. But thank you so much, Maggie from Vihiga, for your call and your comments.
To what she was talking about.
You did hear?
Yes, I did.
I thought the sound was bad. If at all you guys heard what she was saying, maybe let's begin with you.
I'm struggling to understand what she was trying to put across.
Now,
because
as we know.
One of
Oyola knows. So let's
Okay,
just
then.
wait to Oyola. Oyola is saying you had
Maggie was simply saying she was not for the idea of constitutional change.
Okay.
And she's saying that when the first constitution of 2010 was brought to us, it came with a promise that our lives were going to be better. But all the same, there's another one that is now coming again about another referendum. She's not seeing the sense of either of the two. She needs to be convinced because she has even referred to the deputy president, telling them at then that we needed to change. No, she was saying that the deputy president said that we needed to change it then. But they said, let us first of all pass it.
All right, Oyola. Let's just
That
move
is
on
what
to
she
the
was
next
saying.
story. But thank you.
Maybe I'm sharper.
I'm not sure about you, Oyola, but then let's move on to the next story. Here, the number of unemployed youths in the country seems to be growing, and however, this might hopefully come to an end with the emergence of organizations such as Fresh Start Foundation, which empowers youths with skills without them making any payment. Our reporter, Lydia Gashomo, has the whole story.
According to statistics released by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics 2019, the total population of the youth in the country is 75%, amounting to 35 million of the total population, which is 47.6 million. Youth unemployment stood at 39% of the total population of the youths. According to the founder of Fresh Cuts, Andrew Kenzie, the foundation was to help curb crime, which is as a result of unemployment. Now Fresh Cuts Foundation being amongst the leading organizations equipping youths with skills in the country.
Kuna vijana wengi sana ambayo pia wangependa kupewa hiyo kufanya kitu kwa maisha, but now hakuna hiyo opportunity. So ndio nikadecide now God am bless, so hata mimi niwapatie skill. Nimefanya community prison, tumefanya industrial area prison, tumefanya Langata prison, tumefanya Mkuru viwandani, tumefanya Madhare, tumefanya Kariobangi, tumefanya Kangware, tumefanya Kibira, na tunafanya Kenya mzima.
Andrew said that all youths are equally given an opportunity to acquire the skills, mostly considering those living with disabilities.
Our target ilikuwa ni between 35 mpaka pale chini 18. But now tumekuja kurealize hiyo opportunity kuna mpaka wazee. Sijui kama mmewaona, kuna watu wa 40 mpaka 60 years. So ni skill ina apply kwa kila mtu. Hatuna sijui limit at wewe ufai kukua hapa hapana. As long as uko na interest ya kutaka kufanya kitu, tunakupa hiyo opportunity.
However, he says it is everyone's responsibility to take advantage of the opportunities opened to them so as to better their lives.
Mtu kwanza aanze na ile kitu ambayo iko. Unajua, you can be the best mtu akao, shindo. You can be the best mtu akufagia. You can be the best makanga. You never know because you never know who you are dealing with.
Most of the youths who benefit from the foundation showed their gratitude since they have made a step in their lives.
Sana sana nimejifunza mambo ya nimegain skills. Kwa sasa naweza nyoa. Nilikuwa nataka nigain hizo skills ndiposa niweze kufungua biashara hata kama ni ya kunyoa kinyozi.
The Kenyan government has currently been investing on technical and vocational educational training centers so as to empower the youth, a dream which Andrew is helping come true. Reporting for TV47, my name is Lydia Gashomo.
Well, right now we are shifting gears from the BBI rallies story to now youth empowerment. Gentlemen and lady, as you have seen that report, Kenyans have even come out now. They want to really help the situation, even as the government is pulling its efforts together to try and address the issue of unemployment amongst the youth. But the census results, they indicate and confirm the bulge in the youths in Kenya. And this is cutting across even in Africa and other countries across the globe. But when you look at perhaps like the United States, what are they doing different so that they're able to accommodate the needs of the youth in their states? I'll begin with you, David.
I first of all want to congratulate my good brother for such a very brilliant. I've just realized that I'd not even thought about such kind of a thing. We could have already started ours a long time ago. It is a very cheap, effective way of enabling the communities and the young people to have a living. The unemployment rate that has been pegged at around 39%, that means out of 100 young people or 100 people, 40 of them are unemployed. Now that one projects us and very badly. Recently, I think around 3 weeks ago, the World Bank released a report that was saying that the labor force in Kenya is quite expensive. So I was wondering, these guys that can be paid at 20,000, they're fine. Why is it that the World Bank terms them as expensive? And I got an economist who was explaining to me that the Kenyan labor force is expensive because you employ a young person earning a salary of 30,000. The kind of life is expensive that this 30,000 cannot satisfy. And therefore you will be having a labor force that is very not satisfied with the amount that you give them. Then they are not concentrating, then they are not stable. You'll find that now they move from one job to another.
Looking for something in terms of their salary.
Yes, and that makes it a bit more expensive for the employer to maintain this kind of people because of their high life cost of living and those kind of things. And therefore, this kind of projects that the young guy has come up, the good brothers has come up with, these are the things that the government need to empower. I do not see a reason why they need to take millions of shillings in projects that do not make sense at all. These are the guys that they need to call on the table. If you go to Uganda, for example, Museveni every 2 weeks sits down with industry players and asks them, what exactly is the problem that is ailing our economy, that we cannot be able to produce 1 or 2, 3 things. And we realize that Uganda is very, very stable in terms of affordability of life. People are even getting married. People are marrying because life is a bit easier. A Kenyan young person, I don't know whether my brother is married, but me, I am. I think because of the kind of life that we are, it is too expensive that you imagine that if only your life you cannot be able to support. You imagine bringing somebody's daughter in your house that you cannot be able to support. And these are the kind of things that the government need to empower young people to get into business, especially the virgin agribusiness. You look at young people from Western Kenya. They come to Nairobi looking for small jobs that they paid 14,000, 15,000, 12,000. While back at home, there is idle land that is very fertile lying there. We need to look for a way to take these guys back home. We empower them in agribusiness.
So we do have enough resources in the country
have enough resources
to make
for
sure that
everybody.
the youth are empowered
Yes.
and driven in terms of generating a source of income.
It's true, yeah.
I want to hear from you, Zeti. What do you have to say?
What I would like to say is the issue around unemployment. Whenever the youth are mentioned in this country, it's like the youth are usually howling. It's the only problem that they need resolved is like the problem of unemployment. But you forget even when I am employed, say operating on a salary like 50,000 Kenyan shillings, you look at the cost of housing in this country, especially in this city, it's just way over the roof. You look at healthcare, the cost of healthcare, it's very expensive. And then you imagine when you're entrusting a body with these funds that you're setting aside to secure your healthcare, these funds are being exposed to plunder. So you wonder, there is transport, there is rent, there is food. There's so many things that you are supposed to support with this little salary that you had. So I just agree with what he said, it's the high cost of living. As much as we are trying to solve the issue of unemployment, the high cost of living is something that we should really address. And when it comes to the high cost of living, it goes back to governance. It actually directly goes back to governance. What are our leaders doing to ensure that we are living a life that can support almost everyone comfortably, whether you're employed or unemployed? What are we really doing? I agree with the issue of non-conventional careers. Like, you do not really need to be employed to earn a living. But even if we are pushing this youth to go to this non-conventional or unconventional careers, what is it, like, why are we so hell-bent on pushing them this way when we know we can align our structures and really make sure there is something really right to be able to accommodate them, like,
let me hear from Daniel.
Well, I think we've always talked about unemployment, and remember, even when you're employed and you're not given terms that are that you can meet, also address the issues of underemployment as well. And for me, I think, and I'm sure that each and every government that gets into power or gets into position of governance, there's always a social contract that they give to the young people in an agreement, including the Jubilee government. And even in their second term, they were very elaborate on how they would want to, come up with job creation and for young people, using the tag young people. So just like my colleagues have talked about, and I think I really don't want to add much more into this, that if the cost of living is too high, and that neutralizes even how much young people earn and how they would spend it. And I agree with Oyola that, if the cost of living becomes way up, that is going to be expensive for young people. That is going not only for them, but also the economy at large, because it's not consumer.
But we have to appreciate the fact that as much as there's high cost of living, at least let's create some jobs. Yeah.
Now you see, that is where I was coming to, and you see, when we always talk about,
because I think it's better to have something than nothing.
No, but you see, also for us as a country, it's just a value of what we should be getting as well, because a country that is heavily taxed, and this is where I was telling you that even if we look it into comparison with other countries, though our economy is not really, so large as Scandinavians and Americans, but I'm going to tell you that if a country and people are really heavily taxed, then that should be replicated in the services that are provided. That should directly go to employment and creation of opportunities.
Even as you mentioned the issue of taxes, there's the issue of, because we're discussing young people and youth empowerment, some youth who have started companies, startups, they end up being auctioned.
Yes.
Because perhaps they're not able to pay the loans. So how do we address that issue, even as we talk about the fact that there's high taxes, there's also auctioning of companies because they're not able to pay loans? How can we address that?
Number one, we need to divorce a payment of government contracts, especially those ones that you do business with government, from either CDF paying you, counties paying you, to a central body that is going to be very effective in terms of paying you back when you do business with government. I am aware of several tens of young people that have done supplies or done services to the county governments. It is heading to over 1 year. They have not been paid. These are guys who took LPO loans to finance that supply and any other type of business with the county government and with the government. They are not being paid because they cannot be able to meet the kickback amount that any other moneyed guy would come.
So how do we address this?
That is what I'm saying. We need to take this thing that we just need to remove payment of young people, especially when it comes to 35%. Tutoe kitu kwa county governments na CDF. We give it even to treasury. Ideal nayo, so that we have young people living. And again, another thing that we need to do, because young people, the biggest problem that we have is that lack of capitation. We lack capitation. Banks are very shy in financing young people's businesses. And even if they do, the interest is extremely too high above the roof. And therefore, we need to see how young people are capitated so that they can be able to do business, do their startups and continue with their business. The last thing that we need to do, there is this Shylocks that came up with from funny loans, or I don't know whatever names that they are. These guys have made young people to be extremely inaccessible to the loans because you take some, they make money so cheaply, like it is for free. But then everybody has gone in there. Now you are even in CRB. You can't get a loan for capitation for your business.
All right. I want to ask this question, and I'll pose this question to Daniel. The fact that the census results, the whole idea of the numbers of the young people in the country, we're talking about empowerment. So how can they capitalize on the numbers for liberation in terms of and of course also economically?
Well, just like I said, when we one of the is having census is for planning purposes, and also getting programs that are beneficial to where the government sees a gap to fill. And so for me, I think is for government, and some of these things sometimes mambo ya serikali's idea. This thing sometimes I really also need to tell young people that for us to be liberated from this kind of government's idea is what you've just said. How then would we translate that critical mass of young people to put a pressure and to pile a pressure on government and infiltrate through those ways of making your voices be heard, either through purposes of representation or through purposes of petition and participation as well? You realize that there is a number of young people who are politically active, but then they're always inclined into these other political party leagues, and the participation of young people politically in Kenya as we speak is relegated to youth leagues and youth zones and all these. Who tells you that what is the purposes of young people just being within the mainstream political representation, and that then will become their voices? And for those who've represented us, I think it's quite important. Senator Sakaja is really trying to do a number of, initiatives to try to speak the voice of the young people, but he is also in the quagmire of his political ambition as well. He may not be able to represent young people as well. But again, Leah, concluding my remarks, is that young people must understand that youth is a passing cloud. This is very important. That any initiative that we do, we must be able to have a transition to it. Because I agree with what Oyel has just said, what our good brother is doing. And he said something that has caught me off guard. He said that it's not only young people who are here. Hata tumeona wazee wa 40. Remember those wazee wa 40 were young people who are also saying, we are entitled to this at our age.
At that point, let's just take a short break. When we return, we address another issue. And let's just move away from youth empowerment. And if you are watching right now, remember you can engage us through our social media platforms. That is Switch TV, not Switch TV, but TV47KE. I beg your pardon. TV47KE on Instagram and, of course, also on Facebook. And you can tell us exactly where you're writing from. Tell us what you think about tonight's discussion. And, of course, remember the hashtag is New Week. Right now, again, let's take a short break. Don't go too far. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back. If you just joined us, again, I have to mention, I have a very active panel tonight. And remember, you're watching New Week right here on TV47. Before we took a short break, we were looking at matters youth empowerment. Of course, allow me to sample some of your comments here. Someone here is saying, if I can just try and get this. Youth leaders of tomorrow have to come because the leaders we have in 80s and 90s are still leading, and they have refused to resign or retire. Look at politicians. This is Mugambwa from Mfangano Island. We also have someone here who is saying, I'm so sorry guys, I'm just trying to sift through the messages. And this is just a message from someone saying that they love the show and they are really happy about the things that we're talking about. Of course, we'll just look at this messages as we move on. And we'll be sure to sample more of those comments as we get them. Right now, though, I want to move us to the locust invasion situation in the country, where the Chinese government has reportedly deployed 100,000 ducks to their border in anticipation of an impending locust invasion. The swarms, first sighted in December, have already destroyed tens of thousands of hectares of farmland in Kenya, Somalia, and Ethiopia, threatening food supplies in the worst locust invasion in 70 years. Now, however, over a month later, it's not clear to many in the country what the government is doing to cushion Kenyans against the current ongoing locust invasion. And that informs the next discussion. gentleman and lady, and we want to understand exactly what is happening in the country. Of course, the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization previously warned that the locusts could ravage more crops. But the question right now is, do you think the country is usually well prepared when it comes to emergencies and national disasters, such as, you know, the emergency we're having right now for the locusts? Let's start with you, Daniel.
Well, you know, you captured my mind is the fact that information is always provided in time, and warnings, early signs and symptoms are always given to government departments to prepare adequately. Well, however, locust invasion, it's not a Kenyan only situation. I think reading through, the articles here and there, these are things that originated in Arabia, Yemen, and Pakistan, and finding their way through the Gulf and into Ethiopia and then into Kenya. But that do not exclude our government and other stakeholders from taking, a preemptory measures to deal with it. However, much as we see it, for me, I think that the government should be wary of the agenda on food security. And this is very pertinent to President Uhuru Kenyatta, because then one of the threats that we are currently seeing is that if the locust invasion and this tragedy that we are having is not well taken care of, it's gonna throw his agenda out of tatters, because this is a disaster. Wherever they pass, they're leaving the regions empty of food and pasture and vegetation. And remember the timing. We are having short rains always in March and April, and by that time the locusts are breeding right now, and probably the young ones would have been born the moment that the farmers are beginning for a planting season. And that is going to be a disaster, because that will show a food shortage, and and the starvation.
So you think there might actually be a food crisis in the country?
We are going to have a food crisis. It's already been something that has been discussed. But now the point, lastly, is what is the response from allied ministries? I think one of the cabinet secretaries was fired because of a reckless statement of taking a photograph and asking people to show whether there's a locust
on social media.
Now, the one that inherited the ministry have made another outrageous statement of saying that the green ones are old and sooner or later they're going to die, and this is an issue. Sometimes I ask, do we have people who, what is the decision that informs the leaders that we put in position?
And I don't know if my director can actually maybe play some of those, sound bites from some of the leaders who are commenting on this particular issue. I don't know if we have it, my director, Abu Bakar, do we have it? Perhaps maybe we can play those sound bites by some of the leaders. Yes, former and current leaders.
Mkiona mdudu wote ambaye mnafikiria ni locusts, tafadhali mpige picha, weka kwa social media na itatufikia. Either social media wale watapata, at least tutamonitor hata sisi social media.
Hizo nzige vile siko ni sayelo. Hizo yellow color inamaanisha ni nzige wazee. Zimezeeka karibu sikufe.
Concerns about the impact that the locusts have been able to to cause, even the kind of consequence they have been able to bring out. And yes, indeed, they have got the potential to be able to cause destruction and vegetation and farmlands, which, like I said earlier, is a threat to our food security. And the government has been able to try and ensure that this does not happen, and necessary interventions have been put in place to limit the risk.
This former agriculture CS, that's Mwangi Kunjuri, and of course the current agriculture CS, that's Peter Munya, and Cyrus Oguna, who is the government spokesperson. Well, I want to hear from you, Oyola. Do you think the government has the capacity to deal with the current invasion?
Number one, I do not see any problem with the statements that those government officials made. A cabinet secretary is a guy who talks out of information. If that is what the ministry advised, I do not have actually a
so
problem.
So you think taking pictures is really the solution?
They're just trying, it might not be...
And posting on social media.
It might not only be social media, but at least he was inviting the public to also help in surveillance, and also in monitoring, and also to convey through technology. Because an email cannot be able to...
that makes me wonder if you listen to that woman properly, because then we are able to... Now you're deciphering what we just listened.
Number two, Ngare, locusts, it's a global problem. In fact, all the way from the Asian part of coming to Africa, even today, there's a report that I saw that it's already devastating several areas in Saudi Arabia. So
you're saying that what do you think is the current status of the government? Do you think they're able, or they have the capacity to deal with the invasion?
That is what I wanted to say. I think the best way of dealing with the locusts is looking at the most convenient way of commercializing this thing. Apart from making it into a meal...
There has been reports that these things are actually not good for consumption.
That's great. It was only when it got to Busia, to Bungoma today.
No.
But when it was in Mandera.
By the way, China currently has released ducks in preparation for perhaps the invasion that they foresee.
That's very creative.
That's a story that is actually taking rounds right now.
But we need to look
what
at...
What do you think about that? At least they have taken a step.
But we need to also look at the impact assessment on where those locusts have left. What is the long-term the destruction that they have caused? If we see that there's no big deal out of it, let us just allow those things to eat and go away. If there is no big impact that negatively, but so far there's a big problem with this. I'm seeing guys making it into a meal. I'm seeing the other side, they're putting it into a pudding.
Well, and you can actually see the pictures there on our screen. Some people are actually making fun about it.
I saw the ones in Bungoma today and I was shocked.
There's rice, inaitwa ni pilau ya locust.
But you see, me when I was growing up, we used to eat those things. We used to call them mongogo in Kijaluo. We used to chase them and eat them. Arogo, you remember?
That's
when
true.
we were very young.
That's really true.
And you roast it.
But now you know the difference of
But guys, even before we go into the locusts and talking about the difference, I just want us to wrap up and really look at what do you think is the way forward in regards to this locust invasion situation? Because I know very many Kenyans are really concerned, and many others will probably be concerned. 30 seconds, each of you, give me your views. Let's begin with you, Daniel.
Well, I think from a point of where Oyolo was talking about is by the fact that we need a comprehensive need assessment. What ramifications have they done from the places they have landed?
Yeah.
And from what I'm seeing in the media is that there is hue and cry about destruction and loss of pasture and the anticipation of famine. I think that gives enough reasons for the government to intervene and try to deal with it from a point of information. This is very important from a point of information. I think one of the other issues that, one of the issues that we really also need to look into, and I have seen people getting concerned that is probably getting to a spiritual matter. And I think this is one thing that you also see.
Let's listen to Zeti. Thank you so much,
also
Daniel.
that should be dealt with as well.
Let's hear you, Zeti. 30 seconds.
When we're talking about the issue of locust invention and the way we have the workest methods or mechanisms, responsive mechanisms as a country, we're toying around with the idea of food security. Nobody is talking about food security. And devoid of this locust invasion, you should know that it's public knowledge that about 9.8 million Kenyans are actually food insecure. So the locusts are here now, threatening our crop, produce, agriculture. Like the agricultural system, the agricultural sector will almost soon come to paralysis. You see, we're not talking about that. We're not talking about the real issues. We're just joking because it hasn't gotten to the really serious bit of it that then would call for national intervention. But I think we're already there, but the country is just not taking that seriously. I think it's time. I read through some reports and they were saying when they're making plans right now, they're making long-term plans to June, because they think that the locusts will be around here till somewhere like June.
And so finally, Oyola, let's just hear from Oyola.
Food security is very key, and we need to look at how we can control the locust invasion. And I'm so even though they have come, now let us accept that they have come. But you have to thank God that they have come at a time when crops are most regions across the Republic, the crops are out of the farm. If you go to Western Kenya, now watu wanalima, and in other parts, mahindi zinakauka, go to Lower Nyanza. So we thank God that they have come not at a very bad time. It could have been at the time when those dudu zilikuwa zinakula mahindi in North Rift. Then that could have been a devastating the situation that we are going through. And therefore, I would like to urge the government that they continue monitoring this thing. But if they are going to threaten our food security a lot, then we have to look at a way that we also have to make them food.
All right, thank you so much. And thank you so much, all of you who have been watching us tonight, from wherever you've been watching us. This has been New Week. I'll just sample some of your comments, and I'm really happy to be hearing from many of you who are writing to us. We have Emmanuel Simiyu, who is saying, in this beautiful country called Kenya, we have everything that we require, but the problem is corruption. If we can end this disease called corruption, then everything will be fine. Of course, also here we have Auntie Ngahika Ndenda. You are saying, my name is Joyce, watching you from Kasarani. We should encourage our youth to take part in these conversations. Politicians will always speak for themselves, for their own interests. Let the people articulate their own issues in these meetings. Of course, we also have messages here. Someone here is saying, hi, I'm Nixon from Kericho. BBI ni mchezo ya 2022, lakini tunamjua Ruto ni ndume wetu, tutamsaidia awe rais. That's a comment from one of our viewers. Of course, another one here, someone is saying, the one and only gentleman to stop reggae is Dr. William Ruto.
I was very happy. I was looking at the chin of the deputy president, and it looks like he's getting so he's already in the reggae music.
Just one last comment here. We have here Brian Koske, who is saying, Elea, for all I know, this country of ours is poor in dealing with emergencies and disasters. All we know is about politics. We are currently struggling with locusts. What if coronavirus was to come? Wacha tu. And that's a wrap up on our conversation tonight. Oyola, we will come back again next time. Thank you, Oyola, for coming today. And of course, also Zeti and Daniel. Thank you for coming. Let's have this conversation next time. My name is Leangare, and this has been New Week. Quite a very insightful conversation and show tonight. Thank you for watching. Again, remember the hashtag is New Week. The conversation does not end here. You can continue talking to us about tonight's topics. Let us know what you think. Thank you again for watching. Many thanks to the team behind that has made this possible, and of course my director Abu Bakar, who is just amazing. Of course, have a good night and see you again next week on Monday with New Week. Asante sana.